So I saw this video on Zach Baldy's channel about what to look for when buying a Falcon, and I didn't mind the video, and he had some interesting points. But from something from my point of view, as someone who's owned a lot of these cars, there was a fair few things that he missed, or maybe he doesn't consider important that I do. So I thought I'd do a video on a pretty in-depth, comprehensive video on exactly what I'm looking for when I'm buying one of these Falcons, Commodores, old Australian cars, really. And basically, yeah, that was the inspiration for this video. I wanted to go into much more depth than the surface level he got into. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so I'm just doing the coolant on my FG Falcon XR6, and just thinking of a video idea while I'm waiting for the car to cool down so I can drop the coolant. Just thought I'd do what I describe as a buyer's guide for Ford Falcons, because I've bought a few of these now. I've been working on cars for the last 7-8 years with my dad. I know what I'm looking for. I've bought 4 or 5 cars now, Commodores, Falcons. I sort of know what to look for on these old Australian sedans, and I've actually created my own checklist of when I go and look at them. I bring my own checklist and I go through a rigorous inspection. So I thought I'd kind of fill you in on my logic on those things and what the list looks like. So this is the list. Get the camera to focus. This is the list. You can pause the video. I'll stop it there again. It's the second part. That's the third part. And then 3 things that you should never go to a car inspection without. High-powered head torch. This is from a camping store, really strong. You'll be able to see a lot of shit with that. Scan tool. This is not expensive. This is Autel was the brand. I think it was about $150. Does the job. And trolley jack, low profile. This is overkill, 3,000 kilos, I think. But yeah, that'll do the job to jack almost any Falcon or Commodore or anything like that. And then the only other thing you might consider is if the car's lowered, you're going to look at, you would consider maybe something like this, just some old weights to get the wheel of the car up onto so you can get the jack underneath it. But basically we'll go through all the parts of that list now and explain them. So first thing you should do, you arrive to inspect the car. It's a second-hand car. Immediately walk up, pop the bonnet, stick your hand on the block. If it's really warm, the car's been warmed up. First thing I'd be asking the owner, why are you warming the car up? If the car's dead cold, good, because it means when you start it, when they start it for the first time in your presence, you'll get to hear what it sounds like on a cold start. So yeah, if it's warm, straight away I'd be like, question, why are you warming the car up? Like, if it's not that warm, like if it's just a little bit warm, maybe they genuinely just moved it from around the back of the house to the front of the house. But that's sort of something you got to determine. But if it's really warm, unless they just rocked up from work with the car or something like that and they drove it home, that's different. They might have a good reason. But if they don't have a good reason and they're like, haven't got a good excuse for why it's really warm, immediately I'm getting suspicious. Second thing, check the dipstick. Make sure the car's actually got bloody oil in it. If it's got no oil in it, just walk away. I wouldn't even mess around with that. If it's got no oil, walk away straight away. If it's got really black oil, you might ask them, when are you planning on servicing it? When's the last time you serviced it? Whatever. If the oil's brown, cool. That's fine. But yeah, it has to at least have oil in there. And the quality of the oil, you can ask the owner some questions about why it's so dark, if it's so dark. Next thing I do is I take off the oil cap and I'd have a look to see if there's any like gunk on the inside of the cap. If it's kind of got if the oil's got like a milky residue on it or something like that, or like white crap on it, chances are that the engine oil and the coolant is mixing. So I'd be, yeah, that's bad. And I might, if it was really bad, the gunk all over it's really bad, I might even just swerve the car based off that straight away. If it's an auto and it's got an automatic transmission dipstick, I would pull that out, inspect it, make sure the automatic transmission actually has fluid in it. It's a little bit difficult on, Falcons and Commodores because I don't think they have. I think a lot of the automatic transmissions don't have dipsticks. Personally, I wouldn't buy a high kilometer automatic car anyway. That's for a number of reasons I can go into later, but good thing with manual cars is, this is a manual car, so I would have a look in there, make sure that the clutch reservoir has fluid in it, make sure it doesn't look like shit. I mean, this one's actually a little bit low, to be honest, in my car, but if there's none in there altogether, I'll be a bit like, ask the owner what's going on there. A lot of times they won't even know why it's empty, but yeah, it's kind of like a knock on the car if it's completely empty. It's probably not being looked after properly, maintained properly. If you just don't even know that you got no clutch fluid, are you really looking after the car? Yeah, next would be the brake reservoir, same thing. I'd have a look, make sure it's the correct level, between the min and max lines. I would actually open it up, make sure it's not full of gunk. If it's full of gunk, I'd be concerned. It's obviously not a deal breaker, and I'm not going to refuse to buy the car if it's full of gunk, but it's a knock against the car. If it was really bad, you might speak to the owner about, if you're still interested in the car at the end of the inspection, but it was really bad, you might ask the owner for some peace of mind compensation, a reduction in the price, because, the risk factor of having, crapped up brake fluid. But, yep, it's another thing. Then same thing with the coolant. Make sure there's actually coolant in there. This is not a good example because this has got distilled water in it because I'm pissing around with the dropping the coolant, but yeah, make sure the coolant's at the correct cold, max, min level. There's no coolant in the car, just walk away. Same with thing, if there's no engine oil, there's no automatic transmission oil, just swerve the car. It's not worth the hassle. Yeah, but that's something that, yeah, kind of non-negotiable, has to have coolant in it. I'd maybe even, I can't because it's very hot right now. I'd open this and I'd have a look. If there's all crap and dirt and shit all inside the overflow tank here, then yeah, it's not, maybe I'd still buy the car, but it's sort of an accumulation of factors. Okay, if there's full of dirt in here and this is full of gunk and there's no manual transmission fluid, it's starting to all add together to be like, yeah, I wouldn't buy the car, but yeah, it's another thing to look out for. Next thing would be look at the condition of the accessory belt, so the serpentine belt here on the front. Make sure it's all looks good, no cracks, not old as. New serpentine belts would probably be the cars being serviced regularly, and if it's really old and all disheveled and cracked, how often are they really servicing the car? How well are they really looking after it? Yeah, simple one that, just sort of, feel the slack in the belt. If it's really slack, probably really old, look at the cracks in it, just that sort of stuff. Pretty straightforward one. Okay, big one. Big one. So the main two things on these cars that you can't fix is rust, really bad bubbling rust, and if the car's been in an accident. So if the car's been in heavy accident, it just won't drive the same. Like if it's been hit in the subframe and it's really warped, it'll just never drive the same again. And the good thing is that, like, even if you're a master panel beater and the car's been in a big accident, it doesn't matter how good you are, the panels will never sit quite the same again as how it was when it came out of the factory. So what I'd be doing is, I come around the front of the car, look at it dead on. Are the gaps consistent in the bonnet? Are they, the same the whole way down on both sides? Is the gap the same the whole way down both sides? If it's, more narrow up the top and wider at the bottom, it's, that's immediately suspicious. Or if it looks good on one side, but the other side's way more narrow, chances are the car may have been in a front end crash. Immediately I'm suspicious. Immediately I'm like, okay, probably been in an accident. How bad was the accident? Next thing, same thing again here. These gaps, look at the size of them. If they're consistent between here and the other side, the gaps look consistent, then it's probably fine. If the gaps look different, immediately I'm worried. If this isn't lining up, if these two sections, the front fender and the bumper, are not lining square on this part, if this is sticking out or vice versa, one of them sticking out, immediately I'm worried. So, that lines up nicely, so all good. And the same thing, check both sides. Then I'd be looking here at the gaps. The gaps here is one side sagging way more than the other side. It's more of a side-by-side comparison. Compare the two. How's the difference between the gaps? So that'd be everything I'd look at on the front end. Then I'd move to the side of the car. This is all just to tell you whether the car's not. Yeah, next move to the side, same thing. Let's look at the gaps here, then go to the other side, check the same. Do they look the same? Are they more narrow here and wider at the bottom? Door's probably been off if that's the case. Might have been hit in the door, or might have been taking a huge impact to the side. Same thing again. This gap, and then I'll inspect the other side, then inspect the gap along the door here. I'd also be testing the thud of the doors. If they sound tinny, if they don't make a nice thunk, and they sound like rattly as you close them, I would be, a bit concerned. Same thing, make your way around the back of the car. All the same thing, gaps, headlight gaps, check them. Are they different between one side and the other? Is the gaps between the bonnet, the boot here, are they different between the two sides? Take a complete step back. Compare the gaps, compare the entire rear end. Is the bumper sagging? Is the bumper sitting ajar? Compare the gaps of the two sides. Then you come up the top. You compare these gaps. Is one more narrow than the other? Are they consistent? It's the same sort of thing. You look around the entire car, every single gap. One of the reasons why I bought this car is that all the gaps look really nice. Nothing looks more narrow on one side than the other. So if they do, you might let them get away with one thing. Like, for example, if the gap was just, a little bit more narrow here, or, a little bit more narrow on the bumper or something, on one side and not the other, but the rest of the car looked mint, I might be still willing to consider the car. But if you got this inconsistent, the boot inconsistent, the doors inconsistent, hell no, I would immediately walk away from the car, because that car's probably been in an accident, and I just wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, because the two things that you can't fix on a car, accidents and rust. Almost everything else, like mechanical problems, get a new engine in the worst case scenario, get a new transmission in a worst case scenario. Once the car's been in a big accident, it'll never be the same again. And once the car's got really bad rust throughout it, it's not worth the hassle. So the other thing is another common missed thing. The bash bar. Look down in here, look at the bash bar. If the bash bar is all caved in or warped or anything, or if the bolts look brand new, where the bash bar actually bolts into the frame of the car, it's been in a front end crash. It depends. If the bash bar is really freaking caved in and it's almost hit the radiator, I'll probably just give that a miss. It's just not worth the hassle. So yeah, panel gaps, big one. Carrying on from the panel gaps, this will be dependent on your state, but the number plate will tell you a story about the car. In Western Australia, our number plates go 1 and then an alphabet letter, and the higher this alphabet letter, the newer the car. So you'll notice cars from, a BA Falcon from 2004, it would be 1B. That would be the number plate. So, and once you know what a new number plate is, which this is a brand new number plate, this is a 2022 number plate, 1H. Once you know what a brand new number plate is, and once you know what the older ones are, you can start to piece the puzzle together. So 1H is 2022, 1B is about 2004, 1C is about 2007. This is Western Australia. It might be different in Victoria. You might be able to work out what the identifier is, but in Western Australia, it's the increasing of this letter indicates how new they are. So So for me, this car came out in 2009, a 2009 FG Falcon. The letter here should be D. Now it's H, which means it's got a brand new number plate on it. Now, if a car has its original number plate on it, as in this car should have a 1D number plate, and it has, 200,000 kilometers on it, it means it's never been unregistered for its entire life of the car, which is extremely positive because it means that it's never been unregistered, which means it's never been off the road. So if it's never been off the road, then it's never been in a big accident, because if it was in a huge front-end collision, they would have let the rego run out while they were repairing it, unless they got it back on the road really quickly. But I'd highly doubt it. But, when I see something like this, which is a brand new number plate on a 2009 car, you're immediately suspicious. Okay, why has it got a brand new number plate? Now, that could be for a number of reasons. One could be they had custom plates on it, which they wanted to keep, so they gave you brand new number plates. Okay, if they can prove they had custom plates on it before, cool. Or if they had custom plates on it before, no problem. Maybe in this case, this car was from New South Wales, so it had New South Wales plates on it. When it was registered in Western Australia, obviously you get brand new number plates. The New South Wales plates are taken off it. That's why it has a brand new number plate. They have to have a story. Why has it been unregistered, and why does it have a brand new number plate on it? If they haven't got any story, okay, there was no custom plates, yada yada, and you're seeing, for example, panel gaps, as we discussed before, panel gaps being shit and brand new number plate, chances are it's been in an accident and it's only just been fixed up and put back on the road. Especially during COVID, when every bastard was trying to flog their crashed pieces of crap. Everyone was just throwing these things back together, slapping a new, getting them over the pits, and then just, immediately selling them and they all had brand new number plates. And the brand new number plates meant that, it was just some crap someone had thrown together to make a quick buck. So yeah, the number plate can tell you a story about the car. If it's got original number plates, big thumbs up. In this case, in Western Australia, the original number plate on this car should be 1D. If I see Falcons around there with 1D, chances are it's never been in an accident, it's never been off the road, and it's never been unregistered. So yeah, in your state, you might be able to work it out, but in Western Australia, I know how it works. Okay, next thing to talk about is rust. So basically, there's two types of rust that you'll probably see on cars. One would describe it as surface rust, and one's described as like bad rust or bubbling rust or rusted through. So surface rust kind of looks like this. So this car's got some surface rust on its bonnet. Now that's not bad. That's not bad rust. It's not bubbling. It's just surface level. Like if you got a wire brush and just it would just all fall off. It's not bad. And besides, like you can just, if it is starting to get bad, you can just treat it with like a rust converter and then paint it at some stage and it'll be fine. Now, I actually don't have any bubbling rust examples on this car because otherwise I wouldn't have bought it. But I will put a video in there showing you just after this what bubbling rust actually looks like to give you an example. So yeah, if the car's got surface rust on it like that, no problem. Don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. Now, the more nuanced part of rust. So common rust areas on Falcons. This, for some reason, this panel here seems to get rust on the BAs, BFs, FG. Some reason water seems to get trapped here. Another common spot is, it used to be in the boot, in the actual tract. So in here, you'd see rust. So, I mean, maybe they've corrected it by the FG, but BABF, I mean, I'd assume there are some FGs with rust in the boot, but yeah, I would definitely be looking all in here, making sure there's no bubbling rust. Look, if it's just got surface rust, like I said, no problem. But yeah, I'd definitely have a look at that. Danger area. Another common area on the BABFs, funnily enough, not FG because they fixed it, but they went plastic in the fuel cap now to stop it rusting, but inside the fuel caps used to rust big time on BABF. So another common area, just if you're looking at a BABF, just pop the fuel cap, have a look, make sure it's not got any bubbling rust inside there. Another common thing on here, the roof. when the rubbers wear and crack and they go to shit, water comes in, gets in between there, and then gets trapped there. If it happens over years and years, you'll get rust underneath these. So if these look all completely stuffed and sun damaged, chances are there might be water getting in there and getting stuck in there. Another thing to keep an eye out for. Same thing with here, the rubbers here along the back window, they're all cracked and stuffed. Water could be getting in there, could be getting trapped, and could be rusting. So it's another spot I'd keep an eye out for. Another spot is the actual door seals. So here I'd be going, pulling them all up. I wouldn't rip them off because that's not fair to the owner, but you can still like lift them and just have a look. Make sure there's no like rust starting to form under them. I'd look under every single one, all four sides, all four doors, because that's a common spot. That was really bad on VT to VZ Commodores, by the way. For some reason, the water just kind of got in there and then would come round, come down, and just pool under there. So if you're looking at a VT to VZ, I would definitely be lifting those up and having a good look. But yeah, so yeah, those are some of the common rust spots on their Falcons. Yeah, so for an example, so that's kind of the common spots, you know, but for the nuance of it is like, this is what I would think. If you're seeing rust in an area where water wouldn't be getting trapped. Like, for example, sometimes you see, you know, these Falcons and they have rust like bubbling rust here, right? Like, you know, if it gets rain on it, rain's just going to run off and just fall off. There's no water that should be getting trapped in here. So if you see bubbling rust here and you see bubbling rust, I don't know, like here or something, chances are the car will have bubbling rust everywhere, because that's not a common place for water to get trapped. Like, what causes the rust is the water gets trapped and then it rusts the car. So, but water should just be running off a fender. So if there's bubbling rust there, it's probably been, you know, near the ocean. Like, it's been around a very corrosive atmosphere to cause something like a fender here to rust, or, you know, the body of the car up here to rust. So yeah, if I saw bubbling rust in areas where water doesn't pool, I'd just be swerving the car 100%, because it's probably been a car that's been around the ocean or something like that. And yeah, when it's bad rust, you can't really fix it that much. So yeah, just swerve it. This is just an example. If you've never seen what bubbling rust looks like, that's what it looks like. See the way it's all bubbled up? Yeah, I would be very, very concerned. I wouldn't even touch it. Another one, simple one, is just rock the car and have a listen to the suspension. If you're hearing a lot of squeaking or like doesn't sound great, if it makes no sound like that, that's good. That's what we want. We don't want any squeaking or sounds like that. So it's another easy, quick thing you can do. So just further on from the pushing of the car, I mean, look, some squeaky shock absorbers is not going to be a deal breaker on the car, but it's just a more of a information for you as the buyer. Like, I wouldn't not buy it if the shock squeaked, you know. So carrying on from that is tires. So these tires are pretty crap. I got these on when I bought the car. I mean, the tread on them is actually okay. Like, they have, you know, a decent amount of tread. Like, they're not nowhere near the tread limit, but the actual quality of the tire is pretty rubbish. You see things like this, completely all like hacked out. Yeah, I mean, okay, you might not have to replace the tire that soon, but if you see things like this, like, look at all this curb rash on these tires from the previous owner. I'd be asking for a discount. Maybe you won't be able to swing a big discount, but I'd be like, yeah, $500 or something for all the rims are completely stuffed. All the tires are, you know, they may have good tread, but they're crap like that, falling apart. So yeah, just another thing to consider and keep an eye out for. Another one is aftermarket parts. So this car doesn't have any aftermarket parts. From what I can tell, it's completely stock. But in some cases, on cars like Falcons, you'll see they've done a X-forced exhaust or something. You know, you'll see a shiny exhaust coming out the side. If they've done that sort of stuff, try to work out if it was them who did it. If it was them who did it, then you'd ask them if they had the car tuned, because, you know, most of these cars run like shit unless they've been tuned after they've had aftermarket stuff put on. You might be able to get away with a growler, cold air intake or something like that, but you change the exhaust, chances are car's probably going to need a tune. Next is a pretty obvious one, but read the books. The car's got books. In this case, mine didn't come with books, which is annoying, and it's always a risk. But, you know, if the car's been owned by a decent owner, it'll have, you know, your customer warranty book showing you the service milestones and what's been done. If it was done at a dealership, even better. But if it was done by a backyard mechanic, you know, ask them if they got any records. Ask them if they kept receipts of all the stuff they'd done. You know, even if you know, it's not, car not having complete service history or having like sketchy service history would not stop me from buying it, especially on a Falcon. But I would be, you know, trying to use it in the negotiation of the price, saying, well, look, you know, it hasn't got full service history. You know, got to give me some peace of mind, give me a little bit off the price to set my mind at ease, something like that. So next thing I'd do is I definitely wouldn't come to inspect a car without a scan tool. They're not expensive. You can get a basic one probably for OBD2 scan tool. I think mine cost me like $150 or something, and I paid another $10 for the software for Ford. But yeah, basically you'll be able to see the OBD2 port. I think on this one it's actually on the FG, it's actually underneath this panel. Just take it off. Yeah, it's right there. That's what it looks like. It's kind of like a VGA looking thing. Yeah, and you just plug your scan tool into there. Then once that's plugged in, you would get your keys first. Put the car to accessories 2, like that. As if like the next one is to start the car, accessories 2. Then you would plug your scan tool into here, and then you would obviously scan for trouble codes, and then you would read them. So I'm just looking for codes that you know, put me off buying the car. So for example, you know, codes you might see was, you know, car temperature too high, which means, you know, it overheated to a certain extent. You know, I'd be a little bit worried about that. I want to ask the owner, you know, was this you? You want to hear their story, see if they can back up their story. Other things you might see is one time I saw, you know, rev limiter hit, you know, and revs controlled because someone kept slamming the rev off the limiter, which is obviously the revs off the limiter, which is obviously, you know, thrashing the shit out of the car. So, you know, obviously it's kind of a cumulative thing. You know, one of these things on their own, you wouldn't, like, if you saw, you know, revs hit the limiter. Okay, well, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean the car's been thrashed. I mean, probably pretty sure it's been thrashed, but yeah, it's kind of, you got to use your judgment with all these factors together. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't buy a car without reading the scan tool. You see all sorts of things, O2 sensors not working, unless there's something really big, like, you know, timing of the engine is out. If I saw something like that, yeah, okay, I'd probably swerve the car. Things you can do, you can also clear the codes, start the car, drive it, you know, if the owner's willing, plug the scan tool again, scan it again, see if the codes come back. If they do come back and it's something bad, for example, like timing chains or timing of the engine's out, I just wouldn't buy the car straight out. Something big like that, a code that continually comes back, yeah, definitely not. If it's got a check engine on the car, you can work out what that check engine's for. Could be something as simple as, O2 sensors faulty, big deal. Like, you'd still buy the car if it had a faulty O2 sensor. It's not going to stop you from buying the car. You might ask for monetary compensation to cover the cost of replacing the O2 sensor, but it's not a deal breaker like timing chains being stretched or something like that would be. Another thing, you would check the interior of the car. So this isn't a good example because obviously I've got seat covers on mine, but you're checking the seats. Any rips in the seats, ask for money off to replace the seats. Is the roof lining sagging? If yes, ask for money off the car to cover the cost. Obviously, they're not deal-breaking items, but you want monetary compensation. Like, you know, they have to cover the cost. If they are not willing to fix these things on the car, then you ask for some money off for them. Other things, you know, if they've got some mats like this, pull the mats up, actually have a good look at the carpets. If they look brand new, you know, they probably had the carpets out for a reason. That might not be the end of the world. You know, new carpets could be for a number of reasons. They could genuinely just be old, have stains on them. That's why they replaced them. Or maybe the car was in, you know, the floods, you know, over east, and the interior of the car was flooded, and that's why they replaced the carpet. If that was the case, yeah, I'd be worried about rust. So, yeah, you know, replace carpets could mean car was in floods, could mean rust. So be aware of that. Yeah, roof lining is very common, as we've discussed. Yeah, look at all the seats, see if they're ripped. Look at all the door trims, any rips in any of the leather or anything like that. Yep, ask for money off the car. Interior is not that big a deal. It can all be replaced. It's not like deal-breaking stuff, but you just want to be compensated if the interior is cooked. Same thing. If they got a dash mat, lift the dash mat up as much as you can. Obviously, if it's got stickers on it, don't be a dick and just rip it up. But, you know, ask them if they're willing to kind of lift a little bit of it, just see what the dash is like underneath. Could be completely stuffed and cracked. You know, there's a couple $100 for a new dash there. Ask them to knock it off the price. You get the idea. Another thing, check the fuel data. So, some of the more advanced scan tools that you plug into the OBD2 port there can give you diagnostic data on stuff like fuel efficiency and stuff like that. But a very simple way is, you know, the actual information within the car. So you can, if I was to start this car, or maybe if I can go to accessories too, let's see. If I go to accessories too, see my range, 210 kilometers based off my fuel. We could even go down to, let's see, I think select. Let's go to that one, not range. Fuel used. Instant economy. Here, I think if you hold select, which is here, if I hold this down, it should reset this number. Now, drive the car when you test drive it and see what sort of liters per 100 kilometers you're getting. If you're getting, like, you know, this car, you know, urban conditions, probably around, you know, stop-start traffic around 13 liters per 100, 13.5. On freeway driving should be about 9 liters per 100, on maybe even 8.5. So if it's getting, you know, 17 liters per 100 on the highway, then it's running like shit and it's running rich. And I would probably swerve it off that. That could be, you know, it might just be as simple as a tune, but yeah, stuff like running really, really rich could be a big issue. So yeah, that's a simple way to do it. Just, you know, on these cars, it's there. On these features exist all the way back to BA. So just piss around with the fuel economy, clear it, and then, you know, get some average fuel economy. Or yeah, that's about how I would do it. Yeah, simple, quick one to check if the aircon works. So obviously in the FG, it's, you know, aircon's there, you turn it down, press aircon, start the car. If cold air's coming out, decently cold air, cool. If no cold air's coming out, you know, they might say in their ad that it needs a regas. That's fine. But, you know, regas costs money. So if there's no cold air coming out of the car, probably needs a regas. You know the drill. Ask for money off the top of the car to cover the cost of it. Yep. Check if all the window switches work. So obviously, you know, not only the ones in here. You know, turn the car to the accessories too. Test the windows all work. Every single one of them. Test that the electrics on the mirrors work. I would then go around to each door in the back and test that the actual switches work in the actual back doors as well. So it's all just money. If they're, you know, it may not be, you know, if the back right hand one is stuffed because it's broken or something, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's all money you're going to have to pay to fix. So just keep an eye on it. Yeah, another thing, check if all the
exterior lights are working on the car, so this would be good if you get someone to go with you to look at the car. Or if you're in a pinch and you go and look at the car on your own, you can still do it. Just get the owner to sit in the car and you stand on the outside and, go to the front of the car and tell them to, test all the lights. Tell them to turn the headlights on, watch the headlights, make sure they all work. Tell them to turn the indicators on, make sure they all work. Same thing, go around the back of the car, ask them to tap the brake pedal, ask them to turn the lights on, ask them to put the car in reverse, make sure all the lights working. Same thing on the lights on the side, on the indicator lights here. Just make sure it's all working. Make them test them all, show you they're all working, make sure there's no electrical issues, because if there's really bad electrical issues, you'll need an auto electrician, and it's not bloody cheap. Yeah, another thing is turn the car on. Like, ideally, car should be cold start, like we discussed at the start. Cold start the car, give it a rev, rev it reasonably hard a few times, and just have a listen. If there's any sort of rattling or non-happy engine sounds, I'd be concerned. Depends on what they sound like. That's sort of an experience thing. There's no all-encompassing guide to engine sounds. It's sort of experience, but if it's something doesn't sound right, I might swerve the car, because obviously engine is expensive and transmission is expensive. So so going around to the boot of the car, lift the carpet up, check that they've actually got a spare tire in there. So don't just do that and be like, yeah, spare tire, cool, move on. Actually pull the carpet up, lift this out, have a good look at the tire, make sure it's not shredded, make sure it's the right tire for the car. Otherwise, you're up for some money there. And also make sure that it's got the correct jacking equipment. If it doesn't have the correct jacking equipment, it's just more money. Another thing is, I would lift this up and lift the tire out and then inspect the actual metal underneath the mat for rust, because that's another common spot that I forgot to talk about before. So lift this carpet right out and have a good look at the metal, make sure there's no bubbling rust in there. Another thing you want to do is ask the owner, how long have you had the car, any issues with the car in that time, and why are you selling it. And if they don't have good answers for that, or if they hesitate or they look like they're lying, I would instantly be suspicious about that. So sort of just, if people have, a lot of people can't think on their feet that quickly and come up with a lie. So if you just catch them off guard and they're like, I don't know, I'm just getting rid of it. Like absolute bullshit. There's probably something wrong with it. So it's kind of just a question that I'll ask. Lots of people will have genuine reasons for selling it. They need something else, or the wife can't drive manual or whatever. But make sure they actually have a good reason for selling it. So when you're driving manual and auto, really, make sure you put the car through all its gears. So ideally find a freeway that you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and test every single gear out. Autos, a lot of them will have sequential mode. Just test the sequential, put it into sequential and go 1, 2, 3, 4 and back down. Definitely don't forget to check reverse, because it's another gear that could be stuffed. With regards to things that you could experience, so if the gears are crunching, I would be worried. If it's just a bit stiff to go into gear, it might not be the end of the world. Just could be something as simple as bushings on the actual linkages of the shifter. But it also could be something a lot more major. So once again, if it's crunching, I probably would just swerve the car, because gearboxes are expensive, unless it's for a car where the gearboxes are a dime a dozen and they're not expensive. If it's for, like, for example, this is a TR6060 and they ain't cheap. So if I went to drive this car and the gears were crunching, I would probably just give it a miss. If it's a bit stiff going in gear, like I said, might not be the end of the world. If it's making unhappy noises once it's in gear, I would definitely swerve it, because once again, if it's already in gear and it's making shit noises, one of the gears is probably stuffed, whichever one's making the noises. So The only conditions where it doesn't shift smoothly is where it's a bit stiff going in, and other than that, I would probably just swerve it because the gearboxes are expensive. And with the autos, yeah, any sort of slipping in any of the gears, I would give it a miss. Also, this is probably a good time to go into why I just wouldn't buy a high kilometer automatic car. So, from my experience, automatic cars are like, unless it's like really, really modern, any sort of like, 6-speed automatic transmission after a certain period of time, they're just shit. You might be able to get 300,000 out of one and good for you, but chances are, like, after around 200,000 kilometers in inner city driving, an automatic transmission is probably coming to the end of its life. And that's just the truth. And a lot of mechanics won't even bother rebuilding them. They will just shove a new one in. It's hit 200,000. Oh, it's starting to slip. You might say, can you repair it? Can you do whatever? A lot of them will be like, no, don't even bother. Just shove a new one in there because they'll never be the same as when they were new. So say you buy a car, 200,000 kilometers, like if it's a Falcon, might have the ZF 6-speed, drive it, 200,000 kilometers, start slipping, you're trying to find another one with low Ks. Okay, you shove one in there with 150,000 kilometers on it, drive another 50,000 on it, start slipping again. Look, you might get lucky and you might get to 300,000, but that's just personally why I wouldn't buy a high kilometer automatic car, because the boxes can't really be repaired. Whereas a manual at 200,000 kilometers, like if it's been treated nicely, it's nowhere near the end of its life. Shove a new clutch in it, give it a little bit of a service, drop the fluids, like they just go forever. If you're a backyard mechanic, I definitely would be buying manual because you can fix it yourself. Automatics, you got to take them to an automatic transmission specialist. Yeah, I would just swerve high kilometer automatics. If you're buying a new car with an automatic, it's different because it'll last you, years and years and years if you treat it right. But 200,000 kilometer Falcons, yeah, I would not be buying automatics if you can avoid it. Another thing I would do is, as I'm taking it for a test drive, I would brake really hard. If the steering wheel sort of shudders when you're braking really hard, chances are the rotors are warped, which is extremely common on these Australian cars, both Falcon and Commodore. If the rotors are warped, it doesn't mean the end of the world. I mean, you can still drive on them unless the rotors are getting thin, then it's a bit dangerous. But if they're still thick enough, but they're just warped, it's not actually going to do anything. But if you want to fix that shuttering, you've got to replace the rotors. So there's a few $100s there. If you notice the shuttering, just ask for some money off. That's what I would do. Another thing I would do is check if the handbrake is still strong. If you're in a manual car, you can just put it in first. Put the handbrake on and then see if, when you're on the flat, and see if you can overpower the handbrake with just a simple low rev clutch takeoff. If you can easily overpower the handbrake, then it's probably stuffed. If you're in an auto, I would probably just go to a hill, like a pretty steep hill, put the car in neutral, put the handbrake on, see if it rolls. It's a pretty simple thing to do, and it just gives you more peace of mind that the handbrake's not on its way out. Even if it is, it wouldn't stop me from buying the car, but you know the drill, ask for money off. So another one is, you're test driving the car. I would put the steering wheel central, and then I would just let go of it and see if the car like pulls to one direction. If it does it once, probably not the end of the world, but if you keep doing it, keep putting the steering wheel central, keep letting it go, and it keeps pulling like to the left, to the left, to the left every single time, or you can feel it tugging to the left even when you're driving it, it probably needs a wheel alignment. There's a couple $100 right there, so yeah, you know the drill, ask for money off. Okay, let's talk about paint. Paint on these cars. So Australian cars, Australian sun, certain colours love to fade, whether that be Commodores, Falcons. It's Australian car, but it can't handle the Australian sun apparently. Now, what does paint fade mean on them? So if you've got, for example, the roof of the car is good, the front of the car is good, all the way up to like here is good, and then back it's all clear coats peeling and faded, chances are it's probably had the front end of it undercover and the tail end of it sticking out the back of something, and then the tail end's got the sun destroy the paint. The front end looks good. So that might be what you see in that situation. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it's cheaper than a full respray on a car. Doing the end of the roof and this and the boot won't cost you nowhere near as much as a full closed door respray. If all the paint is faded on it, roof, bonnet, guards, doors, look, that's a big job. That is a lot of money. You're looking probably between $2,000 to $3,000 for a closed door respray if you don't know someone. So yeah, that is a big expense. You might be able to just delay it and don't care about it and do it in 10 years time, but it's also something that should definitely be taken into consideration in the price. What it could mean from a mechanical point of view, a cosmetic point of view, is it could mean rust. If a car has paint fade everywhere, really badly, chances are it has not been garaged its entire life, which means it's been out in the elements, which means it's been in the rain, it's been in the sun, and as we know, rain and trapped rain means rust. So yeah, to me, really, really bad paint fade probably would tell you that the car's been, exposed to the elements and maybe not looked after as well as possible, and definitely hasn't been garaged for a long time. But yeah, it's not a complete deal breaker for me. But yeah, as soon as I see paint fade everywhere, I'm saying, okay, this car's been in the elements. Let's look extra close for rust. And also, just as I discussed, the cost of full closed door respray is, a serious cost. So yeah, definitely should factor that one into the cost of the car. So just further on from that paint discussion would be uneven paint or touch-ups. You see uneven paint between, a bumper and a rear part of the metal or something. You see like a difference between the two paints. Either, they've put a new bumper on it because it was in an accident, or, it could be a number of different reasons, but it immediately makes me suspicious if the blue on this part, the bumper, is much darker than the blue here, or vice versa. I'm immediately getting a bit like, or accidents maybe, or, it could be a number of different things, but yeah, keep your eyes out if you see something like that. Okay, and last but not least, guys, unfortunately, if you want proper peace of mind, you got to jack the car and get a proper look. Now, obviously clear it with the owner first. Be like, hey man, I've got a trolley jack here. Can I jack the car? I want to have a look underneath it. I'm a genuine buyer, whatever you got to say. But yeah, unfortunately with these cars, even when they're stock height and with 19-inch rims or whatever, you just can't see under them properly to check for leaks and rust. So you got to jack and bring a trolley jack with you. Be safe, guys. So, in this case, I'm jacking it from the front and I'm downhill. So I'm putting chocks under the back wheels, and I've got the car in first gear to try to stop it from rolling. And even then, I would probably bring axle stands if you can, but if you can't, you just got the trolley jack, just don't stick your head under it all the way. Just be very tentative about how you examine it, because if the car is to fall, just don't be underneath it, basically. So yeah, once you actually have the car jacked, you can get a proper look at everything. You'll be able to see if diffs are leaking, you'll be able to get a proper look under it. You'll be able to see if there's rust or anything like that. If you see rust anywhere that's bubbling, just swerve the car. Just don't risk it. But if it's just surface rust, all good. If you see any like oil sort of sitting on the bottom of the sump there, or sitting on the bottom of the transmission or anything, point it out to the owner, show them, let them know. I would definitely, I bought cars with oil leaks before, but I've just said to the owner, look, it's got an oil leak, take some money off the price, that's only fair. So yeah, just find them all and let the owner know about them all. But you just won't be able to see it without jacking it. That's just the reality of it, because of how low the cars are. Also, if it looks like spotless, could be genuine, or could have been washed down to cover up leaks. A lot of the times you'll be able to see, for example, like if it's been parked in the same spot when you jack it up, just have a look if there's any oil stains on the floor. If you see oil stains on the floor, just ask them, oh, does the car normally get parked here? They probably won't know what you mean. If they say yes, then look, it's probably leaking. They washed it down, and then they, washed the floor, but the stains were still there. So it's either leaked in the past or it could still be leaking. So just be aware of that. Maybe ask the owner about it, see if they got an excuse ready or not. Other than that, examine, just everything you can, and get a true understanding of what's leaking, because you just can't see without lifting it up. Another very, very common thing on these cars is the steering rack. Falcon and Commodore steering racks leak all the bloody time. So, yep, a new one costs you around $500, genuine. Rebuilt one costs you around $300. So if it's leaking, you know the drill. Factor into the cost. Make the owner pay for it. And that's about it.